Right, Augmentation Evoker. So there was a interview about this. It was Preheat and Graham Berger. Yes, about the Augvoker, which there's the original video, of course, and then we just pasted Wowhead's and pasted the Wowhead over here because they typed out a summary of it. So I think we'll just go through like the main highlights just to see what's up. So people noticed that they didn't fully explore the Black Dragonflight in Evoker, so wanted to push the aspect further.
And they didn't make it a tank. How brave. Yeah.
It came about that quickly.
That's the other thought I had there. I
How
was
were they
thinking,
able to do that? Especially considering they had they had fucking reworks. They did a lot. What?
they clearly have a decent few like
If
last
so,
people on the go. Like,
yeah, if so, that's actually impressive.
yeah. Well, I assume this is not from launch. I assume this is from like early beta or early alpha stuff,
Still.
where they're like, "Where's all the Black Dragonflight spells?" No, what?
I
that's
guess
a good
I'm
point.
surprised that it didn't immediately go on to like, we have the thing we need to ship Dragonflight onto the next expansion. That's
Yeah.
surprising. As for why a DPS, they wanted to fulfill the promise of buffing your allies and increasing your damage without disrupting the dynamic of dungeons and raids.
In other words, dancer.
This big thing here, then, potential for more support specs. They're interested to see the community reaction. And if there's more support for this playstyle, it's something they'll seriously discuss.
Yeah, I am like
Bard confirmed. There, I'll make that the title. Done.
it's Tinker confirmed.
No, it's
Because
Bard
more
confirmed.
people will care about Tinker. But yes, I think this is interesting because I'm a little bit worried on. But just being worried.
Oh
Yeah.
dear.
No, I'm a little bit worried about how people will take the Augvoker because so much of it depends on the implementation of the combat log and stuff. If that makes it in time, fully featured. Because as far as I can tell,
Got to know that.
because I was watching details whenever I was doing the like playing Augvoker on PTR in the Mega Dungeon. I was like, I'm doing no damage. And we're all scaled, and I wasn't playing very well, but it's still like, okay, I am barely doing more damage than the tank here. Okay. Is that intentional? Because I'm giving loads of damage to the other DPS, because that's how my spec works? Is that intentional, or is it not intentional? And it's the case of, in my head, I'm like, I literally don't know. And so much of it is down to the user experience of that. Because if the Augvoker takes all the damage that they give to other people, and then they just like, okay, your bar is you did all this damage because you give to other people, and you're like, okay, well that's part of my, yeah, that makes sense. So I'm actually like third on DPS, even though my real damage is nothing, but I'm doing so much via giving. In this case, like John's smacking people with Jarun, and I'm getting a portion of that damage because I'm giving him some main stat. Okay, sweet, that's great, fantastic, I love that. But if it is if people don't see that, or they don't have some visual representation of it, they'll just be like, what's going on? And I think it's just, is it going to be there? Is the add-on going to support it? Is Warcraft log going to support it? And obviously, if the combat log stuff is there, and Blizzard are like, okay, here's the information for the damage dealt.
Yeah.
Add-ons can take it. That'll be perfect and fine, and everyone will do the right thing with it. Because people are smart enough to do that. And Warcraft Logs does it all the time with the different DPS measurements across the NFF. So you go, okay, well, and the same way they show like, now they didn't do it with parses for PI, but it's like there's an asterisk on a ranking.
Yes, yeah.
So you go, okay, well, this may have been 100 parse, but it had PI. The one below it that was like didn't have PI, you could argue probably better. We can't literally know that, but you can argue that, and you go, okay, well, that's fine. And that's my big problem, where they need to actually figure that out. Because as much as Anthony says, nah, folks need to be weaned off the DPS meter. That's like saying humans need to be weaned off food and water. Like, that's not going to happen. There's no chance that ever happens. People always want that metric. And it's not even a case of like, well, do they need it? It's like, no, it's a natural thing. People will want that forever.
Yeah.
So it's like, they'll need to get that right, because so many people will not understand Augvoker, bottom of the DPS meter, they're bad, kick.
That'll be a real problem.
And then they will not invite any other Augvoker, because in their head, Augvoker is bad. And if they see that personally, it's not going to happen. We aren't playing a spreadsheet. We're playing a fucking spreadsheet. I wish we weren't, but we are. That's how it is. We're playing a spreadsheet because other people are playing the spreadsheet,
It's a
and that's how it
tricky
is.
chicken and egg thing. But
It really is, yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's out in the wild. That is how a lot of people play the game, and you just can't. Yeah. But if you're not playing the spreadsheet, you're probably having, at least you're having a different type of fun. Because the spreadsheet is legitimately extremely fun to many.
Yeah.
Certainly, like, I mean, as a ex-DPS player, like, there's bits of me that totally misses the spreadsheet. Yeah, just the number big.
Yeah, I mean, literally, the spreadsheet is part of, and there's some of it's gameplay as well. But I'm not particularly spreadsheetly aligned in terms of how I play video games. But my spreadsheet number was bigger last year. It's smaller this tier because I'm playing Feral and our single target's a bit ass. And they're only fixing it in 10.1.5, which is, after the tier's basically over for as far as I'm concerned. And I'm like, I had less fun because I wasn't drastically destroying everyone else like I should have been. Adjusted for Feral, adjusted for Feral damage and like how much gear I got. Like I geared myself to the tits. And I wasn't deleting the shit out of everyone else. And I'm like, well, that doesn't feel nice. That doesn't feel nice. Sure, we got the boss all, but it's like that wasn't just, I need to be better than people. It's like, well, I wasn't rewarded for my things, and the spreadsheet is the interface in which I feel rewarded for my effort. Because the victory happens one way or the other. But the number on the bar in the corner of my screen is the literal feedback of, okay, so that's me. I put in the work and my bar's bigger.
Well, now that everybody's got a glimpse into hell,
yeah,
he actually did talk about combat logs, saying that combat log hooks are in progress, but they're a massive undertaking. It's quite new for WoW. Several are already working and need to be attributed to the Augmentation Evoker. Many more are coming, and they'll be seeing more of that this week. So that's kind of interesting.
This is my concern.
They want to have the bulk of them out in 10.1.5, but they're looking to try to improve beyond that.
That's my concern. Augvoker might be ready. Is the combat log ready? Because all it takes is the distance between 10.1.5 and 10.1.7 to kill the idea of support in so many people's heads.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it turns out that we're reporting correctly now and accurately, and Augvoker slaps, it'll still be like I guess the timing will cut the initial wave of. Well, hell yeah, I'm excited.
Well, we'll see. To talk about how it's sort of being framed here for LFG and PvP, because I think LFG's where this is an issue. It's not a problem in a guild, really, unless your guild's full of shitheads and it's legitimately tuned to be bad.
A little bit of that, I would say. The way more guilds than you expect would have these issues from being spreadsheeting. I would say. I like saying it's full of shitheads is like, I feel like that's a little exaggeratory, but yeah.
I don't think it's exaggerated.
I mean, there'd be a lot of people will be like gently socially pressured out of playing Augvoker if it's bad. And if it's bad because it's being reported wrong or differently, then that's a pretty major issue here, I think.
I imagine that by having most of the hooks in, that probably won't be a humongous problem. Like, surely they know that it's dire if it happens like that.
Yeah, and the fact that they can't say, sorted lads, all good. The fact of going, the book could be out, has me a little bit of, just a little bit of like, come on, this is a perfect shot, don't miss it. Because I would really love to see this like shootout and go, Augvoker is amazing, fantastic, we love it. Bring an Augvoker most of the time if you want to, because the reporting's perfect. Sweet, lovely. But
so on some of their performance, they say that the current balance of personal damage versus buffing is still to be iterated on, but the plan is having 2 Augvokers queued in the same dungeon will be successful. If you're doing a plus 20, then having multiple Augmentation Evokers probably won't be successful, but again, yeah, it's like that most of the time in WoW. Augvoker's share of damage to buffing will likely be shifted fairly significantly in PvP. The gameplay is just too different, but the tools exist to adjust that. For utility defensive, basically they say the group utility is essential to the new role to make it appealing. Really Defensives, they'll keep an eye on for tuning, but overall they're happy with the package. And compared to Devastation, which I suppose will hone in how much utility is important, that he just says it's about balance, having the tools to make adjustments, especially for the differences in dungeons and raids. Basically, it's a concern. They say they'll be vigilant. We will see.
Yeah, it's like that one thing of the fear of them running no healer, because augmentation is just enough of an off healer that you could run you could run what Paladin, Shaman, Druid, Paladin, Shaman, Druid, Augvoker, and you're like, okay, as in your 4 DPS, and then you think, that's probably not going to be a major concern, but it's like, you know how meta shifts can happen. Because, I mean, currently the thing is, oh, well, you're doing high keys with 4 DPS, but they're all insanely good, and that's not representative. It's like, does that ultimately become representative because Augmentation can talent into their core rotation, having healing be a part of it? Does take away from their personal damage, but the point is that they can spend their essence on Emerald Blossom, and with these talents, spending it in Emerald Blossom keeps the buffs up. So it's like, oh, you are kind of going for a slight more hybridy thing here. So it could be a potential problem, maybe. But it's a case of like, I have to kind of trust them largely on balance here, where they're doing a better job than they ever have before in most ways. And I'm assuming that like this would be preaching to the choir in a large way of, yeah, they know all these problems for sure. It's just a matter of, have they been afforded the time to actually get the first shot important? Because that's where my fear is iteration. They've been very good at iterating and solving problems, but their first time hit rate is still pretty low.
Yes.
And that's the problem with first impressions count so much for a support spec.
One thing that will matter there is their personal damage versus that comes from their buffs, and that is one of the topics here. So, having the majority of benefit be based on your allies' performance, and your buffs on your allies is actually their target for augmentation. It is supported in name and reality. 20% of your damage being from you, your person, does sound lower than they would prefer.
Horrible for soloing.
They still want players to be successful outdoors, and automatically buffing players around you, even if you're not partied, is part of that. Having more straightforward, simple rotation is intentional. Picking allies to buff, position, and cooldown management, that is actually the depth of this class, not their DPS rotation. So really, it's going to be more of a DPS that plays like a healer in terms of your fingers are doing a default thing that's very simple. As filler, and then you're focusing on the rest?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not really. It doesn't have any healer-like stuff. Outside of the, like, you've got a button that you'll always want to give the tank.
So will somebody have their raid frames? Like, will somebody, because you know, like, if you're healing, your unit frames are generally going to be in a different position. Will somebody be using normal DPS unit frames or healer unit frames if they're playing this?
There are going to be two kinds of people. There are going to be people who, well, actually, okay, I'll answer the question more straightforward. DPS uniframes.
Okay.
Because the thing is, your Ebb and Might, which is your core main stat buff, automatically goes to 4 people. And it's the 4, it prioritizes the strongest DPS allies you've got. Then you've got one button that you'll always want to give to the tank, just as like almost like an Earth Shield kind of thing. And it does damage that, you know, when the tank, that gives them some armor, portion of your armor, I believe, then it auto attacks on that target explodes. So they kind of like this basically thorns and armor that you give to them. It has stacks you replenish once it's out. Then there's also a button that is, you press this every, I think it's like 15 seconds, and it basically gives an ally a load of versatility and gives them a chance to echo their attacks for like 15% damage or healing. And that's the, like, those are the 2 abilities you want to target, but they also have automatic targeting attached. So, actually, I'm not sure that, I don't think the tank one does. I think you'll want to, like, target that on your tank. But that's a case of, you can macro that. You can macro that very easily, especially if you're in a consistent, like, group. Or you can have something along those lines to sort that out. And then the versatility buff that you give people specifically is a crit. Oh, yeah, I'm thinking of something else, actually. But yeah, it's crit, and every 12 seconds. Yeah, so you want to give someone that. And it auto targets if you don't have a target, or you target yourself, it'll just go to someone automatically. So if you don't give a shit, you can just press it. But you can also give it to someone specifically. But that's going to be a case of, if you're a raider, you're going to have a macro to go to the person who skills best with crit, in the same way that you by default PI Luke.
Yeah.
On that timer, because
PI the DK.
Yeah, because he's the unholy DK, so it's most beneficial to the group. You'll have 2 people. One person will just press it and not give a shit. Another person will press it and it'll be macro to the person who needs it the most. So it's like, there's almost none of those kind of considerations. There is the consideration of, like, if you Emerald Blossom, you'll maybe think about healing a little bit more. But that's kind of it. It's just a very simple version of a Devastation Evoker in how it feels, with all those other buttons you press to keep it up. That's fundamentally it, really. It's just an easy Devoker. but most of the same abilities. It does have
Okay,
its own.
cool.
It does have its own kind of cool stuff like time skip and
And I guess on
yeah.
some of that, he said that they wanted to avoid that like micromanaging sort of group aspect.
Yep, that's it.
And that, most things are basically auto-targeted or proximity as a solution.
Yeah, that's it.
So I guess, it does push it more to gameplay fantasy
Yeah,
than like
That's all it is.
overtly, you are now playing this like you're just your group's buff shaman.
Yep.
Which I think had happened at a point in the game's deep past.
yeah. You are playing an easier devastation evoker with the fantasy of buffing your allies with your core mechanic. And you do get to see the big numbers on your screen going, you've just given this person like 1200 inch. You're like, yeah, that's nice. Let's go. But
Yeah, I think the rest of it we need to get into
Yeah.
as much. That they seem to be going whole hog into the power coming from the augmentations, though. That's cool.
Yep.
So I'm excited for it. I'm excited they're trying something new. It feels like a bit
Same.
of a risk. And yeah, that's just what we want to see.